just like Justice League, Marvel has a movie that didn't make my list, and that's Spider-Man Homecoming. And by God, I don't want to see it. I mean, I will. I'm probably not going to go see Spider-Man in the theaters. I'm probably going to wait till that crap comes on Amazon or comes on Netflix, because I am not excited about that. Well, this is a bit weird, isn't it? You probably just saw that clip. Hopefully I put it in. Hopefully I remembered to put that clip in the beginning. I'm sure I did. You probably already saw it, but so yeah, I said I was not going to see Spider-Man Homecoming in theaters. I saw Spider-Man Homecoming in theaters. I wanted to see a film for my birthday. Generally, like, my birthday celebration is I go see a movie. It's basically nothing big, but I wanted to see a movie, and the only other movie I kind of wanted to see was Transformers 5. Not because I think they're actually good films, but because they're hilariously bad films, especially with Mark Wahlberg. Not that he makes it worse, but he makes it better because it doesn't matter. So I decided to see Spider-Man because it was getting good reviews. So I saw it, and we're doing just kind of a very quick video on my thoughts on Spider-Man Homecoming. We're just going to go right through this, all the specific parts. We're not going to make this a long video, I hope. So yeah, Spider-Man Homecoming. Let's start off with the story. The story takes place about 2 months after the events of Civil War, 8 years after the events of the Avengers, which I don't understand, but in this, Peter Parker is trying to impress Tony Stark and really be a member of the Avengers, be ready for the next mission that he'll be called on someday, he thinks. And basically he's just doing whatever he can as Spider-Man in New York City, and reporting what he does to Happy Hogan, played by Jon Favreau, returning from the Iron Man movies. And yeah, while that happens, the villain, the Vulture, played by Michael Keaton, he's basically a scavenger. He starts off in the movie, he finds this, he's like scavenging and cleaning up after the events of the Avengers, after the battle in New York City, and his team gets kicked out of the scavenger, I don't know, it doesn't matter. Yeah, basically his team gets kicked out, but he still has some alien tech, so he decides to take the alien tech and start selling it on the black market, and that's how he makes his living. And then eventually, because he's doing this in New York City, he eventually starts crossing paths with Spider-Man, and that's basically how the conflict happens. So, that is story. Let's move on into characters very quickly. Again, we're kind of rapid-firing this. Characters. Now, the clip from the beginning of this video was from my top 7 most anticipated films of 2017 list. If you haven't checked that out, I would recommend you check that out. It's a nice, fun video. And there will be an end card probably about right here. So I guess this is on your right side. Yeah. There will be an end card right here at the end of the video. Not right now, obviously. But in that, I mentioned that Spider-Man did not impress me during Civil War, in Captain America Civil War. And he didn't. He was a little too annoying. They showed him off a little too much. Like, he was kind of hogging all the attention. And everyone went nuts, and I was like, I don't really like him. And probably because everyone was going nuts about Spider-Man, probably made me hate him even more, which is not a good thing. But in this movie, I do actually like Spider-Man a lot more, because I feel like he's given a chance to mature in this movie, which people had said in the reviews that I watched before I saw it. There was one spoiler I heard before I saw the movie, And it's kind of a major spoiler, but it doesn't ruin the film for me. If anything, I was more excited when that part of the movie came up, and I'm not going to spoil it here. We're not doing any spoilers for this video, but yeah, people had said that he really, he's coming of age in this. He's really starting to mature, and I agree. He is maturing in this, and really early on, I noticed that the reason I was finding him a bit more likable in this movie is because every other high schooler in this movie is ridiculous. Like, it's crazy how ridiculous they are. Like, his friend Ned is, like, overexcited about being friends with Spider-Man. You saw that in the trailer, that he finds out. There's this one girl who... I don't even know how to describe this, but she's just very strange. Like, she'll just say, like, this deep, thought-provoking, yet at the same time not thought-provoking stuff. Or, I don't know, it's just very weird. I believe the character's name is Michelle. She was very strange, very... I don't know, if you told me she was, like, stoned, I probably would have believed you. But anyway, I digress. The bully, Flash Thompson, I believe is his name. He's in, every first Spider-Man movie. He was in the Raimi movie with Tobey Maguire. He was just the typical jock. And the same thing in The Amazing Spider-Man. He was just the typical jock. This time, he's not a jock, but he is just a rich, just kind of a-hole, really. He's just kind of a jerk. And he is so over the top, I mean, he doesn't get a lot of screen time. He's not like a major character, but he gets more screen time than this character normally gets in the other movies. And he's just so ridiculous that by comparison, I really liked Spider-Man in this movie, which is interesting because he didn't really feel like Spider-Man. Spider-Man himself, I'm referring to, obviously. He didn't feel like Spider-Man, or at the very least, he didn't feel like Peter Parker, which was interesting. It felt like a completely different interpretation from anything I've seen. Now, obviously, I don't read the comics, so I can't judge him based off of the comics, but I've seen the other Spider-Man movies. He's not really a geek compared to Tobey Maguire, who was, the king of geeks. And he wasn't really... He's not really cool like Andrew Garfield was. Like Andrew Garfield in the Amazing Spider-Man movies, he was a cool, Peter Parker, which was interesting. And, both have their strengths and weaknesses, but Tom Holland doesn't seem to portray either of those. He just kind of made it his own thing. And I don't know if that was because the movie was a bit rushed. Like, I don't know if, like, the script was rushed and they didn't get a chance to put in, the Peter Parker isms about him. And maybe that'll be more prevalent in the sequels, but I don't know. He didn't display his intellect like Peter Parker normally does, and he wasn't that cool like Peter Parker can also be. But I will say, when he's in the suit, I did believe him as a younger Spider-Man, which is better than I can say for Andrew Garfield, who I didn't really care for Andrew Garfield as Spider-Man, but I preferred him as Peter Parker. And that's a contrast to Tobey Maguire, who I didn't really care for as Peter Parker. I thought he was a little too nerdy and a little too whiny. But I thought he was a good Spider-Man, which is interesting. Like, anytime Tobey Maguire put on the suit, there was a presence to him as Spider-Man. Not that Tom Holland doesn't really have a presence, but he kind of captures the kid in the spider suit. And there's some really good scenes where it's just him in the suit, and it's really good and really funny, and really interesting. So, enough talking about Peter Parker. It's probably been about 8 minutes. We're gonna, again, try to speed through this. Other characters, the villain, the Vulture, played by Michael Keaton, if I can talk today. Really good, really fun. He's not necessarily a great villain, but he's a fun villain because he's Michael Keaton. There's really nothing else I can say about that. He's fun, but he's not... I don't know. I don't even think he's that interesting. I think this character would just be a boring character if it was not for Michael Keaton just owning the role. Just, every second he's on screen is fun. Even if he's just, kind of, he's not doing villainous stuff, he's just, being a normal person, it's still entertaining. So that's the Vulture. Other than that, the only other characters I can talk about, well, there's Happy Hogan from the Iron Man movies. He's pretty good. He's just kind of getting annoyed that he has to keep dealing with Peter Parker trying to be an Avenger. So that's interesting. He's in a lot of the movie, which is actually interesting. He's not like a huge main character, but he is in a decent amount of the movie. He's actually in there more than Iron Man, who is in the movie. And Iron Man, you can see like he's still like dealing with stuff from Civil War, but he's still Tony Stark, so he's still, I don't know, and he's also having to deal with Spider-Man. If Spider-Man like messes up something, it's kind of his responsibility to clean it up. And so that's interesting, and there's interesting conflicts between him and Spider-Man. So, yeah. And the last character I can talk about is Aunt May. There's not a whole lot to talk about. She's not in the movie that much. Now, when Civil War came around, a lot of people were thinking, like, oh, so is she going to play Aunt May, like, your cool aunt that, everyone wishes they had, like a cool millennial aunt, and she doesn't. She still plays Aunt May kind of weird, and kind of quirky, and kind of awkward, which is not Aunt May, but works still, if that makes any sense. Does that make any sense? I don't know if that makes any sense. But yeah, like in the other movies, Aunt May is very stern. There's still a sweet side to her, but she's a very stern, authority figure, which does contrast to Peter Parker. In this one, I don't know, she's just kind of awkward and weird, which works. It's funny, it was good, and I actually liked her, but I don't know, it was strange. Doctor Strange, actually. We're gonna blast through these last couple things really, really quickly. Cinematography and special effects, really good. I didn't like the Spider-Man suit in Civil War, but I thought it looked really good here, so I don't know if they changed anything or anything, but yeah, pretty good. It was very colorful, which was interesting, especially for New York. It might be like one of the most colorful Spider-Man movies. Music and sound, really, really good. Nothing too spectacular or anything. I don't fully remember Spider-Man, like the main theme of the movie, but in the beginning of the movie, when they're just showing the Marvel logo, which takes like 30 seconds or something, but while it's playing, there's like this orchestral version of the Spider-Man theme, da 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 da, and it's like this grand orchestra playing this over the Marvel logo, which was really cool, and it was really nice to hear. Jump scare warning, no jump scares. That's all for that. Movie length, it's about 2 hours and 13 minutes. It was fine. I wasn't really uncomfortable or anything. I suppose I got a little bit uncomfortable, but that was just because I was sitting in there a while before the movie to get a decent seat, because this was opening weekend, and you know me, I don't generally go to opening weekend, but I did, and it actually wasn't that bad. I still got top row in the center, which I like. After credit scenes are interesting. There's two. The first one is after, the stylized credits, and it's interesting. I'm not gonna give it away. There's not really much to it. It's like kind of interesting, but it's not like leading into anything. The second after credit scene, after all the end credits, is hilarious, and I'm not gonna give it away here because you really need to experience it for yourself. So if you haven't seen Spider-Man: Homecoming yet, then I'm just gonna tell you right now, wait until the very end of the credits, and you will get a phenomenal after credits scene. And yeah, if you haven't seen Spider-Man Homecoming yet, definitely go see Spider-Man Homecoming. Blech. Definitely go see the film. It was good. I liked it. Is it perfect? No. In fact, I didn't even bring this up, but it didn't really feel like a Spider-Man movie, if that makes any sense. Or at least it didn't feel like the other movies, which is probably good that that it's separating itself from the other movies. That's fine, but it feels, if you're going in expecting a traditional Spider-Man movie, you're not going to get that. You're going to get a Marvel movie starring Spider-Man, as opposed to a Spider-Man movie that's also a part of Marvel. That's kind of the best way I can put that. Maybe you might not understand what I'm talking about, but if you watch the first two Spider-Man movies with Tobey Maguire, skip 3, it sucks, and then you watch at least The Amazing Spider-Man, because I think that's really good. Amazing Spider-Man 2 has problems, a lot of problems that Spider-Man 3 had, although I still like Amazing Spider-Man 2. So if you watch those, at least those 3 movies, and then you watch Spider-Man Homecoming, you'll notice that Spider-Man Homecoming is very different, structure-wise and everything. And that's perfectly okay. It didn't need to be the traditional Spider-Man movie. It was perfect for, well, perfect. It was just fine for what it needed to be. And yeah, so that's my take on Spider-Man Homecoming. It was good, not great, but good, and that's still a good. Good is still a good rating, obviously. Yeah, that is pretty much it. End cards are going to pop up right about now. You can click on those. That one should be my top 7 most anticipated films of 2017. We're about halfway through the year, so see which of those I've reviewed and which ones I haven't. With all that being said, I'm Alex from 7th Hour Films, and I will see you guys next time. Take care.